Welcome everyone to another project. So the project we're going to be focusing on today is a simple logo design project. So this project is great for people who are brand new to design in general or logo design. And we are going to focus today on simplifying forms, learning what perspective drawing is, and communicating through design. So logos are really all about communication. So let's first talk about what is a logo. A logo is a visual that helps identify a company. Now there's different types. There's the monogram, which is a design that consists of two or more letters that are connected, such as the Louis Vuitton logo there. There's the logo mark, which is an identifying symbol that represents a company. Here we've got I believe this is the Twitter logo. So you can see it's more of a symbol rather than a letter or number. And then we've got logo type, a custom designed word, usually a company's name. So you see Coca-Cola as an example there. We all recognize that. So these are definitely helpful terms to know. If you're one of my students watching this video, you're definitely going to want to take notes, handwritten notes, so go ahead and write these terms down. So let's talk about what is this project we're going to do. Students will be given a list of elements to consider incorporating in their initial sketches. The logo design will be for a fictional company. I'm going to give a list of options to pick from. Students will complete 10, but ideally more, sketches to brainstorm the final design. Once the best idea is chosen, the student will do 3 polished variations of the design. So let's kind of break these down into steps. But first, let's also talk about why are we doing this project? What are the goals here? We're going to learn how to simplify forms, which is a very helpful and important skill with any type of two-dimensional art that you are interested in doing, whether it's drawing or painting or design. And especially in graphic design, it's really helpful because when you simplify things down, it makes the communication very clear, and it makes something that is kind of easy to remember, and when people look at it, it's just kind of like this eye-catching, you see it and get it right away type of a thing. So when you're advertising for something or using something for branding, it's really good to use images that are more simplified rather than something super detailed or photorealistic. So we're going to simplify forms. We are going to combine forms together to create a unique and interesting logo. And we're going to try to communicate the mission or the feeling of the company through the design. And we're also going to try to exercise good craftsmanship skills. And what I mean by craftsmanship is just like taking the time to create something that looks polished or, with crisp edges and things like that. So exercising, the best skills that you can achieve with this project. All right, so I had a lot of fun coming up with different fictional companies for you to choose from to create your logo for. So let me quickly go through these and explain what's going on here. This is the first step of this project, so go ahead and write that down in your notes. Step 1 is you're going to choose a company from this list. So we've got the Lilith's Gothic Arboretum, houses the most obscure, poisonous, and carnivorous plants from around the world for scientific study. So then after each description of the company, I've got some keywords here. So these are kind of words that will kind of help you figure out what is the kind of feeling or overall message or idea that this company wants to portray. So the keywords for this one are intellectual, edgy, mature, and mysterious. Okay. Next one is Retro IT Gals, is a small business that specializes in refurbishing and repairing vintage tech appliances. Keywords for this one is trust, helpful, and rational. Dino Land of Tomorrow is a family-friendly amusement park featuring rides and attractions with visuals of futuristic dinosaurs and robots. Keywords for this one, community, imaginative, friendly, and whimsical. Death Valley Desert Resort offers a retreat from the stressors of city life where you can enjoy a reclusive experience, meditate under the stars, and benefit from the saltwater wellness spas, which are naturally heated by the California sun. Keywords here are environmentally conscious, adventurous, calm, and spiritual. The National Sparrow Rescue specializes in rehabilitating some of the rarest species of birds in the United States. Keywords are honest, healthy, gentle, and warm. Ice Cream Spacecraft is an aerospace company that combines cutting-edge engineering with fine art. Keywords are authoritative, innovative, and leadership. Cat Couture for Fashionable Felines is a clothing line focusing on unisex, multifunctional, contemporary designs for both humans and pets. Keywords here are inclusive, rebellious, and luxurious. And the last one here to choose from is Vending Machine. Snacks from Japan is a food subscription box that sends you various snacks that can be found in Japanese vending machines. Keywords here are energetic, humorous, fun, bold, youthful. Okay, so very kind of fun, silly stuff here, but I was trying to be extra descriptive and try to give you something that's kind of like fun to work with. So whichever one you find to be most interesting to you, just choose one, okay? Once you've chosen the company that you're going to work for, you're going to go on to step 2, where you are going to list some related elements. So you're going to grab your sketchbook, or if you want to use Bristol paper for this, that's fine too. But I like to use my sketchbook because I'm just going to do some rough, notes and scribbles to kind of come up with some initial ideas here. So you can make a list of letters, shapes, symbols, or general elements that relate to your company. So let's just quickly look here at my little video example of this. So I'm just writing down the keywords because I chose the vending machine company, and the keywords for that one were energetic, humorous, fun, bold, youthful. So I'm just going to use my sketchbook to brainstorm a little bit, some initial thoughts about what kind of elements could I potentially include in a design. So here I'm writing down the elements. Obviously, this company is about snacks, right? So what kind of snacks could I potentially use visuals to create potentially a logo symbol? We've got candy bar, ice cream, noodles, sandwich, just trying to brainstorm potential possibilities. If I get stumped, I could always Google some options of, what are snacks that are popular in Japan and get some more ideas there. Now I'm kind of sketching some potential visuals or ideas that come to mind when I think of the word energetic. So I've got like exclamation point, I've got a lightning bolt, maybe just kind of some bold, exciting graphics, like an explosion or something like that. May or may not use any of these. This is just a brainstorming stage. So another keyword was bold. So I was thinking bold. How can I show boldness? What about boldness in a font? If I choose to use any letters for this logo, maybe I want to either sketch out some options for a bold font, or I could even Google or go right into Microsoft Word and put some letters down and try out different bold fonts just to see what they look like and get some ideas of like what would be a really cool font to use if I do use any letters for my design. So don't limit yourself. Don't think right away, oh, I'm not going to use any letters. Try it out. You never know if you come up with some ideas that works well, you might want to use some letters. All right, so once you have made some lists of words or maybe sketched out just a few initial ideas in your sketchbook, you're ready to go on to step 3, and this is where you're going to create more sketches. Now you can use your sketchbook again, or you could use Bristol paper, whatever you prefer. Now these are just going to be rough, quick sketches where you actually start sketching some ideas for visuals that will go in your logo. So note down on the paper which company you have chosen on the page you're creating your sketches on, because if you are one of my students, we'll do a critique where you will show your sketches, and we'll want to see which company you're designing things for. So create variations off one idea, or create many different ideas, or both. Ideally both. I did both when I was doing this exercise. And you just want to do quick, rough, small sketches. Okay, so these are not fully rendered, polished drawings at all. These are just little doodles, little quick drawings, just to brainstorm ideas. Okay. So you're going to combine at least 3 elements from your list from step 2. So remember, step 2, you are making some lists of ideas, maybe some keywords, maybe some potential ideas there. So try combining some of those things together. Use that as kind of a starting point. And if you come up with more ideas, that's totally fine. Just, this is just a brainstorming process. It's very helpful if you're one of my students, and since we're going to do a critique on these, go ahead and number each sketch so that we can easily give you feedback during critique, because we can reference which sketch we're referring to if we're giving feedback on a specific one. Now, if you're my student, you want to complete at least 10 sketch ideas here, ideally more. Do as many as it takes to get some sort of visual that you're excited about. But I wanted to at least give a minimum of what I'm looking for, and I'll show an example in a moment, because I'll do a little demo, but preferably more. The more you do, the more options and better ideas you'll generate. Okay, so here's some elements to try at least once. I'll show you how to do this, but if you draw in perspective, you can make either a symbol or letters look three-dimensional, which is kind of cool. It's a cool effect, and it's just a good thing to learn how to do if you're interested in drawing or design. You could use optic gray with stippling or with lines. I'll explain in a moment what optic gray is. Now, stippling is drawing with dots, and you could use that, or just smooth graphite from your pencil if you want to create a gradient. So gradient is like when like one value slowly transitions into another value. I'll show you an example in a minute. Line quality variation, that's where the thickness of your line varies. And overlapping. So if you're my student and you're taking notes, write these down, because these are all really good options to try when you're sketching, just to kind of help you generate more design ideas. So go ahead and pause this page and copy these terms down in your notes, because these are all vocabulary terms that I'm using in this video that you'll need to know what they are. So sketch is a rough, quick, small drawing. Perspective drawing, which I'll show you in a moment, is a technique of using perspective lines to create a realistic 3D effect. Optic gray is creating a gradation of value by placing small bits of black and white next to each other, such as with dots or lines. Value is the range from light to dark. Stippling is when you create value in drawing with small dots using a pen. A gradient is a gradual transition of value. Graphite is the material in your pencil lead. And line quality variation is when the thickness or boldness of your line varies. So let's show examples of what all these terms mean. So as you can see, a sketch, you can see these are not polished drawings. These are just loose pencil drawings just to kind of put some ideas down, right? You can see gradient is that really smooth transition in value. Whereas value is the idea of the range of light to dark, or like, for example, if I'm talking about a specific artwork that has a lot of darkness to it, I could just say, oh, this artwork has a lot of really dark values and not very many light values. So that's the idea of what value means in art. Stipple is creating value with dots. Optic gray is this idea that if you are only working with solid black and solid white, and if you want to create an area that kind of looks in between or like a gray, you can use small bits of black on white, such as with lines or dots, like the example with the stipple drawing, to create that in between. So it's different than if you're using graphite like this gradient scale. It's like that would not be optic gray because that's actually creating a solid gray. Optic gray is when you have bits of black and white next to each other that kind of creates this illusion of gray, even though we're only using black and white. So that's what optic gray is. Line quality variation, you can see the leaves on the left are only one thickness of line, whereas the leaves on the right have a variety of thickness. It's kind of transitioning from heavy to light or thick to thin line. So that just kind of gives some depth and a little variation. It's interesting to look at. Perspective drawing, I'll show an example in a moment, but that's the idea of drawing something that has a three-dimensional look. And then graphite just means your graphite pencils, the pencils you draw with. All right, let's get back to the demo here so that I can really show you kind of what I did with this step of sketching ideas. So I've got, some ideas of elements that I kind of started with. I was thinking about snacks. I was thinking about bold, youthful fonts. I was thinking about Japan. What do we all kind of know is related to Japan? Well, we've got Mount Fuji, the Japanese flag, cherry blossoms. I was thinking about all these things and how could they relate to snacks or work in a logo that relates to this company. So I was I tried a 3D cube with letters on it. It just wasn't really working out. And of course, I'm using the letters from the title. So either VM for vending machine or the SFJ for snacks from Japan. And of course, the exclamation point was fun to play around with. And I was just trying to combine the letters or overlap the letters to kind of like merge it into one logo. So you can kind of see how I was doing that with some of these variations and just playing around with trying to use real, different types of fonts and real simple letters. How could they merge together in an interesting way? So that's what I did there. I also tried some, after sketching out some letters and playing around with that a little bit, I also tried out some actual logo images, like little images of snacks, like a bag of chips or a cup of noodles or an ice cream cone or an ice cream sandwich. I was just kind of sketching and playing around, and I knew a lot of these were things that I probably wouldn't end up using, but just the act of trying it out is really important just to get the flow of ideas going, right? You're going to make a lot of bad ideas before you come up with something good that you're actually going to want to keep, okay? So you can see here how I did some 3D options. This is with using perspective lines. So perspective in drawing is a very helpful technique. If you are brand new to drawing and you don't know yet how to create things that look 3D, just start with a three-dimensional cube. So I've got a vanishing point there, that little dot, and I've got some lines coming out from that. Now I'm going to create a cube, a three-dimensional cube from those lines. So for practice, you can just copy along in your sketchbook with what I'm doing here. So all the diagonal lines are lining up with my perspective lines, but anything that's a vertical or horizontal line will not be, the point will be connected to the perspective line, but if it's vertical or horizontal, you want to keep it straight, either straight up for vertical or straight sideways for horizontal, right? So you could kind of see how I've created a 3D looking transparent cube, and if I wanted to, I could insert like letters or numbers in there and try to make them look three-dimensional. So that's kind of the idea of how you create something that looks 3D in a space. This is kind of drawing in perspective is sort of an advanced technique that for our purposes, it's good to know what it is, and it's good to at least know how to draw a cube. But if you are really interested in learning how to draw environments, this could be a very helpful technique, but that would be for your more advanced drawing classes to really get more in depth into it and learn more advanced ways to use perspective. But in general, there's three types. There's one point perspective, 2-point perspective, and 3-point perspective. Here I'm just demonstrating 1-point perspective because it's an easy way to make a simple cube. And as you can see here, I'm just going to show you how I'm going to insert a letter S inside this cube, and I'm going to just follow those perspective lines within that cube and create a three-dimensional looking letter S. And so this is kind of fun to play around with, and if any of you are interested in fonts, in typography, or in, for example, graffiti, like some people make these big murals with spray paint and graffiti, and they make these three-dimensional, really interesting letters, and it's a very bold, exciting look to create. But you could do this with anything. It doesn't have to be a letter. It could be a number. It could be a symbol that you create a 3D look with it. So here I'm just kind of cleaning it up to kind of show you how it looks. And if you want to, you could add a pattern on the letter, or you could do some shading to make it look even more 3D and realistic. The options are endless for how you want to approach this, but to keep those lines consistent where it looks, convincingly 3D, this technique of drawing with perspective is your best bet for making it look really professional. So I did a little bit of shading there just to kind of show you what it looks like, but yeah. So back to my little drawings here, my sketches. So I filled out a whole page. Again, you can do this in your sketchbook or on the Bristol paper, it doesn't matter. But have fun with it, play around with it. You don't have to be good at drawing to do this stage because it's all about the ideas. Nothing here needs to be polished or professional or anything like that. It's just think of it as doodling out some ideas. Okay, so I put a star next to some of the ones that I was most interested in to use because next I'm going to have to choose one. What's going to be my final design, right? So I'm thinking, okay, which one of these really communicates the feeling and the idea of this company, which is a very fun, youthful, bold feeling for this company. And I chose one that I felt reflected that, because I was using some letters, some fonts that were really bold and 3D, and the way I designed it, I think, looked very active and exciting. Here I'm just showing you, don't forget to label with numbers each sketch so that when we do our critique for our class, we'll be able to easily reference which sketch we're talking about if we are, if we need to. So go ahead and label each one with numbers. So we are on to step 4, choose the best idea. So from your sketches, you're going to choose not only your favorite, but the one that you feel like communicates best the idea and feeling of the company that you chose. And then we're going to create 3 more rendered, polished drawings. And so we're going to choose one, and then we're going to do 3 variations of it that are more polished. So I'll show you an example in a minute, but we're going to use pencils, Micron pens on Bristol paper. So Bristol paper is our nice paper. That's why we're using it for this stage, because these are going to be the more polished, rendered, final versions of what you're going to do, okay? You're going to need a ruler and either a compass tool or circular templates, something that you can use to create perfect circles. If your design has circles in it, you will need that, but you'll most definitely, if you have any straight lines, you'll need a ruler. And we're going to really want to take our time with this stage to make sure that everything looks really nice and polished, with keeping in mind, keeping good craftsmanship in mind, that we want this to be a really nice finished result. Consider the list of elements from step 3 for variation ideas, such as the 3-dimensional look with perspective lines, that optic gray option, gradients, line quality variation, or any other element that you think could be interesting to add. So back to our demo video, I'm going to show you I've got a fresh sheet of Bristol paper, and I'm going to use my ruler and kind of divide the paper into 3 parts, because I'm going to use 1 page, but I'm going to do 3 variations of my logo on it. So I'm just, trying to make sure that I have some equal parts laid out. So I'm just using a pencil at this point. You always want to start with the pencil to kind of lightly sketch things out, and then once we kind of get things looking good, we can go over our lines with the Micron pens to solidify it. But I'm going to go ahead and work on this vertically. So I'm going to turn it vertical, and I'm going to start at the top. And I'm looking at my sketch from my page of sketches that I did, and I'm just drawing it a little bigger than I did in my sketchbook, because it's easier when things are a little bit bigger to kind of polish them and make them look really nice. If it's too tiny, it's really hard to be detailed or precise. So make sure you give yourself enough space here to draw large. So I'm just kind of mapping it out here. Now don't worry, you only have to do this freehand, sketching it out once. I'm going to show you how to replicate it for the 2nd and 3rd variation. So that will save some time. But yeah, I'm just taking my time drawing very lightly with a light touch with the pencil. So make sure you note, which company you are working for here once again. Because this will be the final, project that you turn in for this assignment. So I want to know which company this is for. And I decided to go with a 3D effect for my first, variation here. And I think that's what I did with my initial sketches, that I had it in mind that I wanted it to look 3-dimensional. So I'm just adding a little bit of thickness there to all of these elements. So once you have it sketched out in the pencil, then you can start working with a pen. Now, I couldn't find my compass tool, but if you have a compass tool, feel free if you have any circular shapes or curves like that. But I did have this circular template to make perfect circles, so I'm just going to use that for this one circular shape that I do have in this design. And it's so satisfying to get that nice perfect circle with the pen there. And I'm going to use my ruler for any straight edges. Now, I do have some curves in my design that I'll have to kind of freehand, so it won't be 100% perfect, but it's okay. I'm just going to take my time and do the best that I can. Now, if you really wanted to have super precise, perfect curves, you could use something called French curves. There are these plastic templates where you can just trace them. But I'm going to go ahead and just try to freehand it with these. I think if I take my time, I'll be fine. Now you can see here, sorry, I'm a little bit out of the frame there, but I did turn my paper around so that I could use the natural curve that my wrist and hand creates. When I was doing that curved area, it was easier for me to work on that upside down. So that's a nice tip for you for any time that you're doing a drawing where you need to create curves. You can always turn it, turn your canvas or paper, whatever you're working on, around to get those curves more smooth and accurate. So as you can see here, I'm almost done with this one. So once the ink dries, I will erase the pencil lines and it'll look nice and crisp. But I'm going to show you how to replicate this 2 more times because, again, we are doing 3 variations of this design. So I'm going to use some transfer paper and some tracing paper. And I'm going to trace this and then use the transfer paper to redraw it those couple more times. Now you don't have to do this step. You could just freehand draw it for the second and third one, especially if you want little variations in the actual shapes or angles of the design that you're working on. That's totally fine. I chose to do it this way, so it's totally up to you and what your needs are for this step. So I'm placing tracing paper over this, and I will just trace over my work. And it doesn't have to be perfect because I can just clean it up later. This is just to get a general copy. And when we use the transfer paper, basically what transfer paper is, it's got a layer of graphite on one side. So you want that side to go down on your paper, and when you put this tracing paper drawing on top and go over it with your pen, the pressure from the pen nib will press down and create those pencil lines. So it's a really cool trick. Anytime you want to replicate something again on paper, you can use this method. Okay, so as you can see here, right below, I put my transfer paper down and then the tracing paper drawing on top, and I'm going to go over it with my pen, and that pressure will just transfer those graphite lines right onto my paper. And voila, I've got my graphite lines there. And now I can do my second variation. You can see I wrote a little note for myself. I was thinking to do some optic gray and or a gradient with it. All right, so let's look at the finished result here. I want to show you. So my first one, what I ended up doing was I decided to shade the side areas of the logo just because I felt like I wanted it to look more bold and solid, because this company does want a real kind of loud, bold feel to it. And then with the second variation, like I mentioned, I was going to try optic gray and I was going to try a gradient. So I decided to achieve that with stippling. Now, you could use stippling or you could use lines or some other type of pattern. But keep in mind, like, this is what I chose to do, but you can do whatever type of variations you want to do. You don't necessarily have to do optic gray or a gradient. You could choose something else. Obviously, I have that list of elements to consider, but you know, you could try something that looks more flat instead of 3D. You could try putting a pattern inside of it. You could try, this third one I did was line quality variation. So as you can see, I've got some thick lines and I've got some thin lines. So I used my brush tip Micron pen to create the variation of the thick lines, and then I used a smaller Micron pen for those small lines on the side. So it's really up to you what kind of variations you want to do, or your variation could simply be changing the shapes a little bit. You can see I did that a little bit with the V up at the top is a little bit taller on the left side, and then I kind of shortened it for the second one just to kind of see how it looks. And I also kind of curved some of the pieces of the M a little bit more. I could have curved everything a lot more, or I could have completely changed the font. That's another way to do a variation. So it's up to you how you want to do that. And then I'll show you here. What's different on this one is there is a little orange swatch at the bottom. So this is a quick, fast little step. This last little color that we are going to choose to represent the brand. And this is potentially a color that if you ended up wanting to create the logo in color, this is the color that the brand would use. So choose one color that expresses the mood of the company and explain your choice. So for my students, you can either write on the page that you're drawing on your reasoning for choosing that color, or when you submit the assignment, you can submit a note in the comments of why you chose this color. But I want to know why you chose it, because you don't want to choose just a random color, and I'll kind of explain this in a moment. But you'll just place the color as a swatch in the corner, and feel free to review the lecture on color symbolism and emotional color for guidance on choosing a color, because this is something that I talk about with my students before this project. So back to this example. So when I was thinking about this company and trying to choose a color, I was initially wanting to choose green because I like green. However, green did not really, in my opinion, express the emotion that this company wanted, because this company wants something more loud and fun and youthful and vibrant. And to me, something that's more of a warm color would be more bold and powerful than something that's a cool color. And green is more of a cool color. Cool colors tend to express things that are a little bit more calm and relaxed, whereas warm colors express more vibrance. And because this is a energetic, youthful, fun company, I felt that orange really expressed that energy. So again, your company might be different. For example, if you choose the Gothic Arboretum as your company, you may want to choose a cool color, such as green, because Arboretum, you know, has plants that are typically green. So, you know, it just depends on your company for which color, but you'll want to really put some thought into it, okay? Once you are complete, if you're my student, to submit this, just make sure you're taking a really clear picture of your work. As you can see, this is what I did. It's very clear. It's well lit. I took this picture during the day near a window, and I've got a ruler right next to my project to show the size of the paper I was working on. This, you know, final step, it's on the 11 by 14 inch Bristol paper, okay? So before I close out this video, I just want to give a couple suggestions for books that I think are really great suggestions if you are interested in graphic design or creating logos. These are really helpful, wonderful books. The first one is this little image down here, Made by James, The Honest Guide to Creativity and Logo Design by James Martin. And this one came out recently. I think it was just about a year ago that it came out. And it is a beautiful book, and it's very easy to understand, very thorough. It talks all about his process of how He became a designer and how he approaches logo design, and his process is kind of similar to what we did today with the brainstorming process with sketching and things like that. And he gives a lot of great examples of his work, and he talks about all sorts of things, including like how to price your work and how to be a professional designer. So highly recommend that book. Second recommendation, especially if you're thinking about being a professional designer and getting into logo design, Trademarks and Symbols, Volume 1 and 2 by Yasuburo Kuwayama are classics for this industry. Unfortunately, they are a bit pricey. You can find used copies online. The cheapest I found was about 30 something per book. And the prices range, if you're getting a really, nice used copy, it could be closer to 100 or more. But if you can find this, and if you can afford it, if you can find affordable options to purchase this online, highly recommend it. The logo designs are absolutely beautiful, and so one of the volumes is all about like letters, and then the other one is all about symbols. So it's a really great way to kind of brainstorm and get inspiration and ideas just looking through them. So I'll just kind of, I apologize that my camera here is not the best quality, but I'll just kind of show you when you look through, they're just pages and pages of these beautiful logos. And obviously this video quality does not do this justice, but it gives you an idea of what these books are. And real quick, I just wanted to show you some examples from the Made by James book as well, just so you can kind of see, like, here are some of his logo design examples. You can see they're very simple, black and white. Here's an example of using stippling as well as a gradient, as in here kind of makes it look three-dimensional. This Made by James logo here has some line quality variation. As you can see, the thickness of the lines go from thick to thin, so that's a good example. And I love this image. This shows his process, which pretty much looks like what we were doing, right? He's just sketching little doodles in a sketchbook until he comes up with an idea. You can kind of see how some ideas, he tried out one thing and then he tried to combine it with another thing. So when in doubt, if you get stuck, just try combining different shapes together or different letters together. Try overlapping and see what you can come up with. Another thing to do if you get stuck is writing lists like this. Just lists of ideas can be very helpful. And I really liked this page as well, where he was showing an example of how to use some real basic shapes to communicate. So for example, if you're trying to communicate community, linking elements together, like these two circles, linking things together kind of communicates community. Strength, you think of like boldness, power. So obviously something filled in to be solid would communicate strength more than something that is transparent or empty. And then honesty can be visualized as transparency. And so he shows that here in the corner. So I just thought that this was a good example of how you don't have to have this big, elaborate, detailed design to communicate something powerful. So that's it for this project. So just keep in mind when you're creating this project that a lot of it is the brainstorming part of it. And don't be afraid to draw designs that don't work, because that's part of the process. You've got to get out a lot of bad ideas before you get a good idea. So just have fun with it. And stay open to ideas, even if you think it's an idea that won't work. Sometimes sketching it out will either prove you wrong or it will give you an idea for the next thing. So the best thing you can do is just keep your pencil going as you're sketching, and then just choose whichever design is communicating the most effectively, because once again, visual art is all about communicating ideas. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.